Oh, it's saying live on Facebook.
Okay. Now I'm just getting a progress bar going forward.
Okay.
Setting up the done, redirecting. And
we're live. I can see it.
We are live. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Now, I want to get to the right screen here.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
It's a slight delay on Facebook.
I just want to be able to see Melanie, beautiful Melanie. Okay, good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Christine Lee, procrastination coach. I am so grateful and happy today to bring you my good friend, colleague, and mentor, Melanie Moore. She comes to us from the UK, and she has been a wonderful guide and teacher for me and so many others over the years. I've only known her for a little over a year, but it feels like we've been friends and bonded for much longer than that. Melanie is an expert in the practice of EFT, which is the emotion freedom technique, which is a wonderful method, a simple and profound method to release old patterns and old habits and old emotion chains that are inside your heart and body. And we'll be talking about EFT later today, I'm sure. But she is also a big vision coach. She helps people to find that vision that is in them and to bring out the language and bring out the behaviors that we need to get our big vision into reality. We all have these lives, bigger lives that we want to lead. And Melanie is a wonderful, supportive, empathic guide for showing us each how to get there. She's helped me terrifically. I've said that now 3 times, but I want to bring her on here to my followers and friends here so that she can help you as well. And Melanie, I want you to please add to this introduction as you will. And we're so happy to have you here and to learn from you. I'm so excited to reconnect with your material and with what you're doing now.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction. And I'm really grateful and I'm really delighted to be here as well. What can I add to that? I'm a coach. Big vision coach is my job title. I always think it sounds a bit made up. And the tools I use to help people to have a bigger vision are visualization and EFT, hence the kind of like, so my business name is called Tapping Into Your Big Vision. And tapping, well, actually, so I kind of help people firstly to have a bigger vision for their lives, because I think most of us, we don't dream big enough, or rather we did maybe once upon a time and we just hid it away and we told ourselves, oh, I've missed the boat, I've left it too late, or I'm just not qualified, I don't have what it takes, I'm not technical enough, or I'm not whatever, I don't have the qualifications. All these stories that we tell ourselves as to why we can't move forwards to the things that we really want to be, do and have, but just stories we tell ourselves. And I just want to encourage people that all we need to do is to start telling ourselves a different story, but we need to get clear on what we want first of all. That's the first step. And then once we've kind of got clear on what we want, look at the stories that are kind of getting in the way between where you are now and where you want to be, but also the emotions as well, because I'm really into not just the stories, but the feelings as well.
Yes, thank you. And just because many of my followers may not know your background, could you describe a little bit how you yourself got clear on all of these complex issues, which sometimes we just get too busy to really work on or to reflect upon, and then we get lost in terms of that early big vision in our hearts?
Yeah, well, as we were saying just before I went live, I'm a working mum, you're a working mum, and my vision has evolved over the years. I think about 10, 14 years ago, when my children were very, very little, my vision was quite different to how it is now. Now they're 14 and 11, and my evolution as a mum has changed, and therefore my vision for my life and my business has changed as well. So I started off, the corporate career, getting the train to London every day. And obviously, motherhood changes us all. And when after my second child was born, my daughter, Bonnie, she's nearly 12 now, I didn't want to go back to the corporate career. I was at that time, there was a phase where I was juggling 2 small children and a full-time career, and something had to give. I couldn't do that anymore. And I didn't want to do it anymore. I thought the children, they grow up in a blink of an eye, and I wanted to be at home and, stay looking after them. So I'd already kind of had interests in alternative therapies. So I trained as a reflexologist and a Reiki healer. This was while I was still working as well. So gosh, I had a career and small children, and I decided to retrain all at the same time. And then I just kind of put it out there. So my vision at that point then was I'd really like to start up my own business, and I'd like to be the primary caregiver for my children. I want to take them to school, pick them up, and just run this kind of small business in between while the children were at school. So that was the extent of my vision at the time. And there was, absolutely nothing wrong with that. And then, fast forward 10 years, actually, let's go a little bit further in time, maybe 5 years ago. Then I wanted, how do I grow my business? How do I kind of scale it up a bit? Because when you are just working one-to-one with clients with that limited time they're at school, yes, I was earning an income, but there wasn't. It's so funny because I was talking about it this morning on my Instagram stories, that it was around that time I was getting really into personal development as well. And I was reading books like, I've just got it here, Think and Grow Rich. And I thought, I love this book. And one of the passages in the book, which we're going to come on to money mindset in a minute, was, set an income goal for yourself. So I thought, right, okay, I will. I set an income goal for £2 million, and I wanted it by the following year. And anyway, it didn't happen, but I absolutely know why that didn't happen. I was literally learning to run before I could even walk. I didn't even really know what money mindset was. And I am all for setting big goals, but I do believe it has to come in stages. And I likened it a bit to if I've just decided to start running today, I'm not going to be entering into the London Marathon next week. My body wouldn't cope. I'd probably keel over and die. But however, with the right training and the right preparation and growing into that, then yeah, absolutely, I've no doubt in my mind that if I wanted to, that's the thing, I don't really want to. If I wanted to, I know I could run the marathon within a couple of years. I don't actually want to at the moment. It's not a goal of mine. And it's the same with the big money goals. I'm all for having people, set an income goal for yourself. But I think it does kind of have to come in stages. You need to kind of understand this concept of money mindset first. So I feel like I'm going off at a tangent.
Yeah, no. You've been very clear. I feel like for myself, and also for, I'm sure, a lot of the people who follow me on here on Facebook, that we have some resistance, maybe some natural resistance to developing a healthier money mindset. And I know that for myself, it can come from all different directions. And sometimes these thoughts that I might have sound irrational to me, but I might still abide by them. Well, that goal, it just seems so outlandish or so difficult to achieve. I'm wondering if you could share with us some of your thoughts about why we make it so complicated for ourselves. What factors go into that process where we just keep ourselves away from that feeling of being well financially?
Yeah. And I think really it comes from a decision that I kind of made a decision a while ago that, okay, not only my mother, I'm a single parent as well, and I don't really like to harp on about that too much, because again, it's just a label, and, it's an identity, and, nothing wrong with that. Amazing single mothers out there. Yeah, and I'm one of them. But that's the thing. I could have got stuck in the story of being, a victim, as a single parent, but I made the decision because I started for a while. I felt myself getting a bit blocked with the story of it's going to be really hard to be a successful single mother. It's, it's difficult. I really couldn't see it. And it's just like, no, what if I change the story? I can be a successful single mother, and I can inspire other single mothers to that, you know, if I can do it, then so can you. So I think I've deviated from your question slightly, but it's making a decision that, you know, this is the kind of life and this is the kind of story that I want for myself, that I can live an abundant life. I can have a successful business, and, you know, I can be a half decent parent as well. Because we can, that's a story I've chosen for myself, rather than the story of, you know, life is hard, you know, the whole world's against me, or, you know, it's so difficult, or, you know, just having that, you know, I can't afford things, and sorry kids, I'm a single parent, you know, we're a single parent family. No, you can't have the ballet lessons. No, you can't do this. We've got to, and I would never kind of put that upon my children either. So for me, I wanted it to be really a case of like, kids, this may be a single parent household now, but it's business as usual. You know, there's going to be no change. There'll be some changes, but there's going to be no significant changes. And it's just making that decision really for yourself. And I think once you've made that decision, because making that decision is a bit like having the vision. And then I've made many vision boards, as you know, what does that vision for my life look like? And again, it's something that I'm evolving towards as well. Yes, I've ticked plenty of things off. It's not all there yet, but I know that this is a journey, and it's a wonderful journey. Not every day goes great, not everything goes right, but there's always lessons to be learned. So yeah, bring me back to the point. I'm going off on one here.
You're making me think of so many things. So I'm just going to share a few, just vision boarding and working with you, and the words, you know, telling ourselves that things are hard. I know anyone who has worked with me for any amount of time knows that I jump on the word hard. So, because when we tell ourselves that something is hard, it makes that issue that much more difficult to get to, or to clear out of our lives. And I've learned that in part from working with you, and in listening to also the people that you work with. I mean, I think you attract a group of people who are striving, who know that there's something bigger out there for themselves. And we don't want a life of hardship and we want to feel abundant. I know that was my experience once I joined your private group, that I thought that I was a positively minded person. And I realized I had a long way to go, in a good way, that there was much more for me to embrace in terms of the opportunities and the lifestyle that I could lead for myself. So that's on the hard issue. And then I think the whole issue of recognizing that we can change our own story. I think that's why, Mel, I connected with you immediately. It was many years ago, actually, that I heard Melanie on the James Wedmore podcast, the Mind Your Business podcast. I heard her voice. I heard what she was promoting and saying and teaching. And I thought, wouldn't it be lovely to work with Mel one day? And here we are a few years later. And it's just proof that you can decide what your story is going to look like. And it may be a jump for people who feel like they're stuck. They're in the same old story. The story will never change. But Melanie and I are here today and other days to tell you that you get to decide. You can become more active in your own journey. And then the last thing I want to mention is the power of vision boarding. I have also taken Melanie's vision boarding course, and I thought, this is kind of funny. Let me just experiment with this. But I can't say that I was a full believer that this process was going to work. Well, Melanie makes it an entire experience of letting go, of really thinking big, and of making it a community effort. And I have to tell you that I think I achieved more than 80% of my last year's vision board after working with Melanie. So this stuff is for real. You know, really, if you're watching here live or on the replay, follow Melanie and embrace the power that you have within your own life. And she just has a wonderful, happy way of delivering this material too. There's no downside to working with Melanie. There's no bad moods. There's maybe a busy day with children her children are lovely too, and abundant. So I just wanted to just give you multiple shout outs, Melanie.
Oh, that's so kind. That's so kind.
Also, could you just tell us about maybe money mindset and our children? That might be, we might have some parents watching, and how we can influence our children to avoid these heavier stories, these stories that we can't do everything that we envision for ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the phrases that I really kind of get people to be aware of is the phrase, I can't afford. And, you know, my parents said it to me when I was growing up. I remember not often. And, you know, I had a comfortable childhood. There was certainly no hardship there. But yeah, there were times when I wanted things. I still need to tap on the time I didn't get the Cabbage Patch doll, but never mind. I think that was more of a, not they couldn't afford it. They're saying we're not spending our money on that. It was back in the 80s and I wanted this Cabbage Patch doll. And some of my friends had it. And I think it was about the 30 or so pounds, probably about $50 or so for this doll, which is quite a lot of money just for a doll. Anyway, I didn't get it. But anyway, so I guess really what I'm saying is, I never use the words I can't afford. You know, the trip to Disney, which, you know, you've heard this story many times, was a classic example really of, you know, my daughter really wanted to go to Disney World. It was kind of the year my husband and I separated, and the truth of it was that I couldn't really afford it. I could have put it on a credit card, but it just seemed a little bit irresponsible. But I never said the words I can't afford. So what I did was we made a fun thing of it. I said, right, Bonnie, let's make a vision board. And, you know, that's exactly what we did. And I said, I can't promise you when we're going to go, but we will go one day. I promise you we'll go one day, but I can't tell you when. And we made the vision board, and I got pretty focused then. Thought, right, I really want to take the kids next year. I want to take them spring break. And this is the thing, this is the key to visioning, I think, getting clear on what you want. So for me, it's a Disney trip, and why you want it. Because I actually wanted to go. That's one of the things I remember asking my parents about, you know, I really want to go to Disneyland. And they kind of said, well, you know, can't really afford it. So I'd never got to go. So I wanted to go. My daughter really wanted to go. And, you know, it would just be fun. Why wouldn't you want to take your kids to Disneyland? And so super clear. But then I thought about it quite a lot, even to the point of I worked with a business coach, and, you know, I got in a hot seat, and she said, you know, what do you want to work on today? And I said, look, I just want to make enough money to take the kids to Disneyland. And anyway, she got me to do a visualization exercise. And I thought, really? I know how to visualize. You know, you're meant to be giving me some strategies and some business advice here. And she was just telling me to do what I already knew myself. Sometimes, you know, sometimes we forget what we teach. I don't know if you're the same, Christine. Sometimes we just forget. So
absolutely.
Sometimes we have to be reminded to do our own work. So she took me through a visualization exercise, and so I did. I visualized being at Disneyland, and I'd already made the vision board. And anyway, long story short, that, you know, when you get really clear on what you want, by not saying the words, because when we say I can't afford, we're saying I don't have the money, and there is a lack, and therefore you're literally closing the doors of opportunity when you say the words I can't afford. So how I always reframe that is, how can I make it happen? Now, in the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, he actually uses the reframe, how can I afford? But I actually prefer how can I make it happen, because how can I afford still involves money. Whereas when we say how can I make it happen, we're taking money out of the equation, that these things can come to you from other sources, just like the Disney trip did with me, that I ended up, you know, ridiculously winning a competition just a few months later, where I got a phone call from Disney head office to say, yeah, you've won first prize in a contest, and, you know, all expenses paid, trip to Disneyland with flights and accommodation. And it was like, oh my goodness, how many competitions are there out there? And yeah, actually, I think I only entered the competition because it was a Disney competition and my Disney radar was on high alert. But yeah, I ended up winning the competition, and I was pretty obsessed with taking the kids to Disneyland. I think when we want something, there is a kind of fine line between being obsessed with the thing you want, but also the detachment as well. Because I was attached to it for quite a long time, and I wanted to, and I still thought to myself, I've got to earn enough money in my business to be able to take the kids. And my vision was that I'd be telling the children on Christmas Day. But by the time Christmas Day came and went, obviously it hadn't happened. And I'd let go. I literally, at that point, totally detached. I'd put so much kind of effort and intention into manifesting this trip to Disneyland. I let go. And it's literally 10 days later that I got a phone call from Disneyland to say that, we'd won the trip. So I would always, my thing to children would be is like, don't say I can't afford to them on the thing we want. It's like, how can I make it happen? And, my daughter right now, she wants a MacBook Air. And it's not a case of like, right, I'm just going to go and buy it for her. She needs to kind of put some effort in herself as well. And, I said, yeah, put it on your vision board, manifest it, visualize owning one. But, perhaps you can, if you want to go shopping with your friends, don't buy the complete rubbish. Don't spend £20 here and there. Perhaps you could save up towards it, and, maybe it could come to you in other ways. But, and I think it's teaching children kind of like, asking them to make the question, what do I need to do to make this happen? And maybe it'll get their entrepreneurial heads in gear. My son's raising money for a trip to Ecuador. He's mowing the lawn for his grandparents. He's washing cars, and he's, raising money towards it. So, yeah. And I think so. In a short answer, to my long answer was, I would say to children, how can I make it happen instead of I can't afford? Because that way we are literally opening up multiple doors of opportunity from the whole universe to come and support us.
I love what you said, that you can actually take the money out of the equation and let the entire universe of opportunities be open to now releasing what you want to you.
Totally.
I think it's a beautiful way of describing it. And I do believe that this is how the universe works. I also feel like this is how we get ourselves stuck, that we envision that there's one way of our getting something, whatever it is, whether it's Disney or a promotion or a different partner, something like that. And that we forget that there are all the different other ways that we can't predict, that we would never have predicted.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. That's the absolute truth of it. All the things we want are there for us, and there are so many different ways in which you can come to us, sometimes in ways that really are quite surprising and freaky. But the moment we sometimes get ourselves stuck in the, like for me, I thought I had to earn a certain amount of money. And even, when I think about in my life when I've wanted, assistance or help, and sometimes you think it's going to cost money or whatever, then helpful people come in other forms, and they just literally just want to help you. So yeah, we should never limit ourselves to the way in which we want things to come to us.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. I want to now move on to my next question, which is, how do you work with adults? And I know in your materials you mention a neural technique, and so how do you integrate brain training with this abundance mindset work as well? I know that you mix the two.
Yeah, well, my work has evolved over the years. Like, when I first read The Secret, it was all about manifesting and woo-woo, and just put it out there. And I read a lot of books on, manifesting. But then recently I've incorporated more to kind of like the science behind it as well, because there is a science behind it. Even reading some of the old books, there's a book called The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Really old book. I think it was written in 1910, I think. And there is a science to this stuff. And what I didn't realize though, is that I was doing this already, but I didn't realize that there was a science behind it. For example, the Disney I was literally priming my brain to go to Disneyland. I was, visualizing being at Disney. I was like, how can I get to Disney? How can I make this happen? How can I make this happen? And I was literally conditioning my brain to, even noticing the contest, perhaps I might not have even seen that had I not been, how many times do we walk past her, enter this free prize draw, and I just don't bother. But, oh, yes, I'll enter that one. We do condition our brains, just like learning to ride a bike, just like, learning to drive. The moment we sit in the seat of a car on our first driving lesson, we don't know what we're doing. And it takes practice. And before you know it, you're kind of like, oh, I've just driven 50 miles. I've got no idea what happened in that 50 miles because you've just done it on autopilot. But because your brain has just, I think, so there are, I can't remember exactly, I think maybe 3 or 4 stages where one, when we don't know that we don't know. So, we just don't know that we don't know. And second is that we know, but we don't know how. And then we know and we're kind of like practicing, and then we know and it's just automatic. So these are the stages I think the brain takes for us to acquire any new skill, whether that's getting fit and healthy, or, just become second nature to exercise and go to the gym. And, this is exactly the same for money mindset as well. You said, so how do we work with adults? Firstly, there's got to be a desire, and that you want to learn how to do this stuff. And it's almost like, I'm going to make a commitment to studying this stuff now. I continue to read books on money mindset because I know there's always a new level of stuff to learn. And some of the books I've been reading recently are kind of like, oh my gosh, let's take Rich Dad Poor Dad, for example. I read that last week, and I was first given that book about 10 years ago, and I thought I didn't resonate with it at all. Because firstly, I thought it was for dads, for men. So I just didn't bother. But then when I read, my gosh, there is so much in here, but it's very business focused as well. So it's a little bit woo, but it's a bit business as well. And, reading Joe Dispenza's work on the power of the subconscious mind, reading Joseph Murphy's work on, I think his book was called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. And it's incredible how how our subconscious mind, we can also call that subconscious mind our limiting beliefs and the old stories. That is our subconscious mind that literally is sat in the driving seat for a lot of the time, but it's actually reprogramming that subconscious mind. So those stories that your parents might have told, we can't afford this, money doesn't grow on trees, they may have even shaped the way you see rich people in the world. And it's just kind of reconditioning yourself to new language, to new beliefs. And, so for example, it could be that, it takes hard work to make money. And a lot of us may have seen our parents do that. I know certainly my parents, were both in nursing and healthcare. And I remember them, they would work Sunday shifts because it was double or triple time. So, working kind of harder to earn more money. And that becomes like our story, the harder we work, the more money we make. But what if we start to tell ourselves a new story of, it could be something as fun as the less I do, the more I make, the more I take my foot off the gas pedal, the easier life becomes. And that's certainly the case. So I'm now reading the E-Myth, E-Myth Revisited. That's about entrepreneurship and running a business. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's like, my mind is blown all over again. That, that we do get it all wrong sometimes, that we try to do everything, but actually if we just let go a bit and focus on our own zone of genius, that actually business does become much more fun.
Yes. And I guess the theme across all of this is to keep yourself open. And sometimes we need assistance to have that openness, to be noticing things. I have noticed that your members who follow you in abundance challenges and exercises that you've run in the past, that it's kind of people just finding wealth and extra checks and maybe the $20 under the couch that they wouldn't have otherwise been looking had they not been working with you, had they not been intentionally deciding that they wanted to fix their financial situation, their money mindset, and their current lot. And I think everyone who's listening has the potential for more. We all have just this abundant potential. And sometimes we get busy, we get tired, we get this conditioning that we need to stay in our zone, that there isn't room for all of us in that next space ahead of us that we're thinking is really attractive for us. But really it's like you get what you make of it. And so let's make more. Let's join together and decide that we're going to help each other, help ourselves to grow, change, and live an abundant life. Live well, I think is really the end goal.
Yeah, totally. And and this whole thing about attracting abundance, it kind of came to me, and again, I've been sharing this over the last couple of days, was again, so I started off, as with EFT, emotional freedom technique. I was helping my clients, 5, 6, 7 years ago, were people who were trying to get pregnant, people who were pregnant and post-pregnancy, the stress and all the emotions that come with that time of your life. And then I was doing kind of vision board workshops. And as I said earlier, that I was kind of really trading my time for money. And then, I then recently separated, and it was just like, okay, what do I do now? And I was at a crossroads in my life. It's like, okay, I'm going to have, and the big thought was, I'm going to have to go back to my corporate career. That's the only way I can see to, earn a big enough income in order to, keep the children living the life that they're accustomed to. But I thought, no, I don't want that. So it was then, again, asking a powerful question: how can I make this happen? And allowing the universe to provide me with opportunities. And this is when I started live streaming on Periscope. Got quite a big following there. It was my introduction to doing live streaming, just, getting over myself. And Periscope was great because it was a completely anonymous audience. Nobody knew me on Periscope. So I was like, yeah, I was happy to live stream. I had much more resistance when Facebook Live came along, but again, it's fine. I've got over that now. But I remember when I was on Periscope, and again, Periscope was like the universe had answered my, question: how can I make my business go global? How can I reach a bigger audience? And, this app lands in my lap a few months later, Periscope. So it's like, okay, so for a good year, I was streaming on Periscope, building up a following, but not necessarily, there's no call to actions. I had nothing to sell other than booking a session with me on Skype, which was still one-to-one time, but it was great. I wasn't limited to Hertfordshire anymore. All of a sudden I had clients all over the world. And then it was during this time, and again, I used to share everything on Periscope. I used to live stream once a day, at least, on Periscope. And there was this week in my life where the car had broken down. It was kind of unexpected expenses that I had coming. And it's just like, okay, right, I'm really stressed here. I've got all these bills looming. I wonder if I can tap into abundance. And that's literally how this whole money mindset thing started. Firstly, I would tap on that feeling of overwhelm, that stress of, oh my gosh, I've got all these bills looming. Sorry, I've got all these bills looming, and, the stress and the overwhelm and that feeling in my body, that anxiety. And I said on Periscope, I am going to set the intention that I want to manifest £1,000 this week. And I'm going to take you on the journey with me. Let's see what happens. So I did daily tapping, and because I'd it was public accountability. It was the weirdest things happen. I got new clients that week. And again, I was sharing this on another live stream earlier. I found an envelope of cash behind my microwave with £250 in it. And then my friend who was interviewing me said, how did things like that happen? And I said, I know exactly how it happened, because at that time, my dad, bless him, he was, they were worried about me being a single parent. And my dad often, he'd give me an envelope of cash, and he said, no, just put an envelope of cash there. And I'm obviously super grateful. And but it was just, I'd forgotten about it, or my mum had put it behind the microwave for safekeeping. God knows how long it had been there. And so here's me trying to manifest abundance. And the universe obviously waited for a moment that I really needed it. Had it come a few weeks later, or got it at the time when, you know, I was given it, it would have long been gone. It came just at the right time. And by the end of the week, I'd manifested £1,000 through new clients, through this, and just random things happening. And then a few months later, this is when the first prosperity party was born, and I just kind of started online business. I just launched my program, Tapping into Abundance. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to get a group of people together to do exactly what I did, and to set an income goal for some money to manifest this week? Let's do it collectively as a group, using the processes that I had used myself just a few months before. That's when the first prosperity party was born. It was 2 years ago, but yeah, so this is the 3rd year I'm running it. And that's exactly what I've done. And this is what I'm doing next week. It's my 3rd prosperity party. And yeah, just getting together an international group of people. The goal that I'm challenging everyone to set the intention to manifest, and it's my intention for everyone joining the party to manifest £500 or $500, which I believe is totally possible. And we do that through a daily tapping video, which I've created. And what else? So daily tapping video, gratitude exercise. Now, here's the thing, through the 20 or so money mindset books I've read over the past, decade, there is nearly always a chapter on gratitude. It's, I believe, the missing piece when it comes to attracting abundance. And there's abundance prayer, which I've created this time. And there is a daily task, which will take approximately 15 minutes, which we're going to do collectively as a group. And it's fun, seeing the things that people manifest, and they share in the group. Oh my gosh, this has just happened. That's what happened. Manifested £500. I've got a £2,000 client. And, I've got all these screenshots from last year of all the things, that lots of people manifested. And it's just a super fun environment.
Yes. I'm looking forward to joining myself this year. And I have just posted a link on the side here. And if it's not clear on Facebook, after this interview is over, I will repost the link so that you can join Melanie's new prosperity party. I really, again, want to attest to the fact that Melanie puts her all into every offering that she has. It's really thought through. Her use of language and just persuasion, I would say, to help you get into the right zone to allow all this goodness to happen is top notch. She used to be a journalist too. It's not hard. And I'm just so impressed with her ability to connect with individuals where they need to be, to recognize and articulate the parts of us that are dormant, that are underused, that are underdeveloped, that can help us to be bigger, to play bigger, and to get the bigger life that we are wanting. Now I have one more question, I believe, which I hope will be linked with this theme today of abundance, is the idea of limiting thinking. When you might be doing very well in your life, and yet there's more that you could achieve, maybe in business, maybe in your family life, personal life. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts for how to go even bigger? Is it the same thing? Are there different techniques for when you feel like you're actually working in abundance, but that you don't know what's next?
I think it's constantly asking yourself what is it I really want right now. I think it's got to always come back to the question. And I think I actually even have it here as a reminder for myself. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. But it takes quiet time. It takes some thinking time, reflective time, switch off all the distractions. I really believe that a quiet mind gets things done. That's the thing. We kind of always, and this is something I've had to do for myself more, is I've always got a podcast on the go. I don't like, I used to feel like it was a waste of time having empty time, apart from my meditation time. But even then, I'd often do a guided meditation rather than just be at one with my thoughts. But it's asking myself the question, what is it I really want right now? And tune in with my body. You know, perhaps there's something coming up and it's sitting heavy on me. That actually, do you know what? I don't really want to do that. Or if things just feel off, it's about, getting into alignment with what you really want, because then all of a sudden it's just like, once you kind of get that clarity, you can then move towards where you want to go. So am I making sense here?
Totally. I think for some of us, all of us, sometimes I think the idea of alignment is so powerful, but it's also something that only each of us has to develop that sense of what is aligned for us and what is not. And that's a practice. That's a daily practice of paying attention to when we're feeling well and what things make us feel well and what things don't. And I think what Melanie, what I'm taking away from what Melanie is saying is that you have to see yourself being, enjoying that next step, to see yourself already having attained that traveled that path, and make that something that you're incorporating into your idea of who you are. And that can make that journey a little bit easier. It can make things go much more quickly. And then our bodies don't feel like we're in danger, that we're in foreign territory. We feel like, oh, we're going home. We're just going to our next step. It's obvious that we're going to be there.
I think the key thing is paying attention to how you feel. This is so important. And again, with the whole money mindset, with everything we want to manifest in our lives, is, what is a feeling that's going on for you right now? But there's nothing wrong with any of the feelings we have. You can get mad, you can get really angry, and it's fine. You're a human being. I was just talking to my daughter about it the other day. She went to bed and I think we just annoyed each other. We were rubbing each other up the wrong way. And she just said, Mum, I'm really angry right now. I said, good. I'm glad you're angry, but I'm glad you're telling me that. And it was just where she went, see, she's got a bit of a temper on her, my daughter. And I said, okay, where are you feeling it? And she says, I feel it in my head. My head feels it's going to explode. I said, okay, fine. So just sit with that for a minute. And then we did some breathing exercises, and, we did a little bit of tapping. And then I just allowed her to process the anger. And afterwards, I said, you know what, thank you for letting me sit there with you while you just told me how you felt, rather than us just kind of screaming at each other. She said to me, I'm just really angry right now. And I think I might have just taken her phone off her before she went, put your phone away. And she was like, but I was in the middle of something and you just took my phone away. And but, we processed it and she let it go. And that's the thing, maybe that's a silly example, but it's just acknowledging how you're feeling and letting it go, getting yourself to a place of calm, because from there you can then ask yourself the question, what is my next step? Yeah. What do I want? What do I really want right now? And I think getting deeper and deeper, and I call it focusing on your heart's desires. What do I really, really, really want right now? And you sometimes have to ask yourself that question over again. What do I really want right now? And then when you get clear, it's like, okay, what do I need to do to make that happen? It's just going within the whole time. You've got all the answers, but it's asking yourself the questions, but allowing yourself to get to a place of peace and calm, because that's when the inspiration comes in. And, you want to call it the divine or whatever, God or Jesus or whoever you believe in, when you suddenly get that idea and it's like, that's what I need to do next. The word inspiration comes from being within spirit, and you can only do that when you quiet yourself down, you let go of the emotions that are blocking that inspiration from coming in. That inspiration is not going to come in when you're angry or shouting, or when you're stressed or frustrated or any of those feelings.
Yeah,
that is only going to come when you can get yourself to a place of calm. That includes being calm about money as well, because God, let's face it, money is very emotive. And if you're sitting there stressed and worried and anxious about money, if you can change the way you're feeling about money just by getting yourself to a place of calm, that money-making idea is going to come in, that you're going to get that phone call from that person or prospective client, or you're going to just see that Facebook post that's going to give you the next step. So many things, but you've got to get to a place of calm.
Yes. Speaking of calm, I just made myself very uncalm by trying to get the Facebook answers while you were talking, and then it went into my headphones. So I apologize for being distracted. But I wanted to see if we have any before we sign off to see. Helen is here. Just wanted to let you know that. Hi, Helen. And it looks like we don't have.
I'm happy to answer questions at a later date if they come on.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I will help you get to those as well. So yes, absolutely. So I apologize for getting distracted that way. I was
Don't worry, I'm the same on Big Vision TV, don't worry.
Yeah, okay, wonderful. And let's, do you have any final words for people who are listening? And also let's just remind people, I will remind people that the link to Melanie's 5-day prosperity party, it will be a party and I will be in that party group, is to the side. And I will put that on Facebook right after we finish here. And Melanie, if you could just share any last words or thoughts that you have for the listeners.
I'd say, this could be, and, a few years ago, I didn't think money mindset was a thing. If you're intrigued in the slightest and you want to begin that journey, then, the prosperity party is a great place to start, where it's going to be fun. It's just going to help you think and feel differently. Remember the key things I said. I want to help you to think and feel differently around money, because that will ultimately change your relationship with money. Because when we have a better money mindset, we can then literally go big with our vision, because very often a big vision involves having, a bigger house, a bigger car, more things, a successful business. But if you don't get your money mindset right at the start, it's going to kind of almost block that vision from happening. So if you're intrigued, just come and join the party. Oh, by the way, it's £5 to join, which is, really small investment for this kind of change in thinking. And the reason that I've charged this year is because, I want people, to be committed to doing it. It's a tiny investment. How many times do we sign up for a free webinar or a free ebook and we don't even look at it? I think when that tiny transaction has taken place, you are going to show up and you will be committed to making changes.
Yes. And again, I will put in a plug that once you join this kind of experiment and party, you will immediately click into the mindset. I think we get helped just by joining, just by deciding that we're going to do something slightly differently. So if you're on the fence about doing this, or you're thinking you're too busy or too stressed, this is the kind of thing that I would encourage you to jump into, because you're going to get some relief. You're going to get a different way of thinking, and you're going to find techniques and learn techniques from Mel about how to make things go more easily and to get to your goals much more quickly, including financial abundance. So I want to thank you, Mel, for joining me on my very first interview on Facebook Live, and for being my friend and mentor. You are marvelous, and I wish you all the best with this prosperity party.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, have a great day, and let's talk after this is over.
Okay, great.
Okay, bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening. Let's see.